We're here at Gomorrah, and this is one of the sulfur balls, or maybe 3 or 4 altogether. It's really crusty and hard around it, so it's kind of hard to get them out in one piece. Just bent the fork.
Wow.
Maybe if I... That's a good sized one. It's still going. That's sulfur. That'll burn right now. Just put a lighter to it and it'll burn until it's gone. Pretty neat stuff.
Yeah, we set one on fire up there.
We're going to set it on fire so everybody can see it burn. See it turning yellow, and it starts melting, turning black. Watch,
and it's
still burning. And pretty soon it'll start running down the wall.
Oh yeah, the whole thing's turning black.
Yeah. That's cool.
Puts out a real strong smell.
Yes, it does. Just the fumes themselves would kill you in no time.
Yeah.
Especially with as many thousands. Watch it drip. Look at that. Imagine that on your arm or anywhere. It would be already through a few layers of skin by now.
Wow, it's burning right in there too. That's neat.
God was very angry at those people.
It's just picking up a piece of actual.
Okay. Ta det for analyse, eller?
Ja, vi har gjort det før, men det er klart for å vise fram. Vi hadde blitt så smuldra.
Yeah.
Det var enormt med mengder av disse her. Hadde du en lighter på deg, Thomas? Nei.
The crossing of the Red Sea. The first time I saw this pillar, I think, was in '82, and my father, my brother, we were going diving where we thought was where the children of Israel crossed the Red Sea. When I first saw this, it was laying half in the water and half out on the beach down there, and I haven't seen it since they stood it up. But
you said it was, you know, what was in the water, what was not in the water?
There was this part was on the beach, but there was part of it that was laying in the water, and we saw it. We didn't know what it was for sure, but my dad later on saw one on the other side of the water, and that's what made us believe that that was where Solomon thought that Moses and the Israelites crossed the Red Sea, and I think he marked it with this pillar. And there was one right on the other side of where we think they crossed, and that's one of the reasons we think that was the spot where they crossed. But like I say, this was in the water before, and they stood it up over here, so I believe the Israelis think that this was an important.
Because the Israeli soldiers put it up here.
Israeli soldiers put it up here after we found it, and so I think they think that it's an important find.
What year was this? Remember?
I think this was 1982, 81 or 82. Right behind me is Wadi Retir, if I pronounce that correctly. But I believe it was 81 or 82, the same time we found the pillar. We had a rent-a-car, and coming down to Nueva, we saw there's 3 places like this that go up in the mountains, and in the rent-a-car we couldn't tell how far they went up there. So we drove up a couple and got stuck, and we didn't really know how we could tell how far the wadis went up, and we wanted to know if you could get all the way, if they went all the way through the mountains. And we couldn't tell just by in our rent-a-car, and we couldn't see far enough, so my father had the idea to rent an airplane. So we went back to Eilat and rented a small airplane, and we flew down here over the wadis, and we took a lot of pictures. And we found out that the Wadi Retir went all the way through. So we figured that that's a good spot where the Israelites could have come from, because it went all the way through there, and that was the only place that they could get through. And so anyhow, we hired the airplane, which a funny thing, the pilot's name was Moses. So he flew us around, and we were able to see all the way up this wadi. We got a lot of pictures of it, and that's what convinced us that this was probably where the children of Israel came out. And then they headed up towards up the beach that way. That's why I think that it was right close to here. Have you been swimming here?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, you did? You go snorkeling?
Yeah. Where did you find the pillar exactly?
I think the pillar was, I say it was just a little past that tree, maybe. Just right in there, as far as I remember, is where we first saw the pillar that we showed you earlier that they stood up. It was laying, I think it was partly in the water and part out when we first came here. We found that, and
But then you found the real stuff.
and we went scuba diving right out here, and me and my brother and father, we took scuba lessons at the house, and we came here and went diving our first time. And we just 3 of us went out. We split up a little bit. We were on top of the water. The water is real clear. You can see real good when we were here diving. So we swam out and we were split up and we're looking down, and we saw something that looked like it was covered in coral, but the shape was the shape of a chariot, the box. There was no wheels on it. We just saw the box itself. And then we went out just a little bit further, and my brother spotted it first. He saw the wheel on the bottom, and it was quite deep. I don't know. It was. We were amateur scuba divers, so we were lucky that nothing happened to us. But
It's quite deep.
it was, yeah, I think we went down to 180 feet one time because we saw something down there. And my brother saw the wheel first, and I was kind of watching him, and he waved me over and showed me what looked like a wheel, and my brother went down and touched it first. It was a gold wheel. When we looked at it, it looked like it was a solid gold wheel, but my brother went down, and Ronny went down and touched it first, and we pushed on the gold, and it felt hollow. It was like mushy. It's like I think the wood wheels were covered in gold, and the wood the wood part I guess just eroded, and just the metal frame was there, and our father was wanting us to see if we could get it up, but we tried a little bit and we knew that it would come apart, so we couldn't do anything with it. We left it there and we tried to mark a spot so we could come back and get the wheel out later. The next time we came out diving, we couldn't find it. And
the sand is shifting.
The sand was shifting, and there was plants on the bottom at a certain time of year. And but we have the pictures at the house. We're going to get those together, and that proved to us that this was the site. And we think God led us here. It wasn't anything that we did. You know, Dad studied in that, but God really helped him find the spot. And we give all the credit to the Lord. And but we're convinced this is a place, and it's right here. If you go up that way, maybe a mile, and well, probably 2 miles, maybe that way 2 or 3, there's coral that goes all the way off, and it's just a drop off. And here you go out and it's smooth sand all across the bottom and nowhere else. And we believe the Bible's true, that it was a miracle that happened. We believe the sea was parted here and they walked across, and there's another wadi on the other side. And we think that's the route they took to Mount Sinai. The place. Yeah, yesterday my brother wasn't with us. I mentioned earlier he had a little problem with his passport, so he couldn't come with us to Egypt yesterday and see the column and everything. And he was going to tell you the story about us him climbing up the mountain in the wadi that we took a picture of yesterday.
In the wadi that the Israelites came through to go down to the Red Sea before the crossing, I think it was in 93 or 94, Eric Limke and Josh Neiswanger was with us on a trip, and my father said we were driving down on the road that goes through the wadi now, and he said, hey, you guys, go climb that big mountain right there and see what you can see, how far you can see down, you know, which direction and stuff. And we climbed up this really big mountain, and on top of it there was some rocks that were piled up like this, and there was a middle section, and they were kind of wide, like this wide, and so they could actually may have used that as to signal to another mountain further up in the wadi. So when the Egyptians were chasing them, they said, you know, they could signal up ahead to know how close the Egyptians were to them. And so and when you look through it, you could look right to the other mountain and see a pile of rocks on it. And I'm sure that if you climbed the other one, it would have shown the other mountain, another one up ahead. So the Israelites had very good scouting people who were warning them of how close the Pharaoh was coming behind them. So it's really interesting that there's all sorts of evidence that that had to be the route they took. After our father discovered the true path that the Israelites took through the wadi down to the Red Sea and where the Red Sea crossing site is, we knew that Mount Sinai had to be in Saudi Arabia. So around 1980, we started applying for visas to get into Saudi Arabia, and they always turned us down. And in 1984, towards the end of the year, my father decided that we were going to go there anyway. And so we flew to Aqaba, Jordan, and we got a hotel. And well, we rented a car, got a hotel, and we woke up about 2 or 3 in the morning because we weren't accustomed to the time change and stuff. And we all 3 woke up, and Dad said, guys, he said, I'm gonna go on into Saudi Arabia. He said, it's up to you guys if you want to go with me, or if you don't, here's your plane ticket, your passport, you can just go back home. And we told him that, you know, we couldn't let him go by himself, you know. And so what we did is we drove our car over to as close to the border as we could get, and we took a side road and parked it back off the road a little
behind
ways.
the hill so nobody could see the car.
And we were carrying some snorkeling gear, movie camera, and an underwater camera case for the camera, and bottles of water and stuff like that that we needed. And so we started hiking through the mountains at about 2 or 3 in the morning, and we just went up and down these hills for about 14 hours it took us. And when we got over there, we went by a couple guard towers, and then when we got over past the guard towers, we went towards the road, towards the shore.
Nobody saw you.
We saw soldiers out there driving, then we'd hide down, and then we'd keep going after they passed. Yeah.
And it was a very tiring, it was rough on our dad going that far because he was in his 50s then. And we got to the road, and we decided we were going to walk down to the water and kind of refresh ourselves. And there was a family there. There was like a kid and the mom and dad. And we went down there, and he turned out to be a banker in a town, and he could speak English real well. And he said, well, he could take us on into town because we said, you know, we would really like something to eat. And he said, okay, I'll take you. And so he took us to a restaurant, and we ate, and then he took us to his house, and we actually sat and talked to him for a while in his house. And then we had him get us a cab, and we got a cab, and we drove on into Tobuk, I think is the name of the town. And we spent the night in Tobuk at a hotel, and the next day we hired a car to try to take us down to the crossing site on that side so we could go snorkeling and hopefully take underwater pictures of chariot wheels that we knew must be there. And there was a fence that was along there, and it was a military area, the sign said on it, and so we couldn't go there at all. And so the next thing we did is we had the driver, we tried to explain to him Moses, or Dad would say Musa, and they understood the story, and then they came up with the name Jabal El Laws. They knew what we were talking about, Mountain of the Laws. And we said yes, and so the driver was taking us out there. And when we got close, a Jeep came driving out of the area and started yelling at our driver and told him to get out of here. You know, take them away, get them out of there, because that was also a military area, it turned out. And after discovering that we couldn't get to either of the places, we decided that we needed to go on back out of the country and try again some other time, or and my dad was too tired from the hike in and real sore, and he said, guys, he said, I'm not going to be able to make it out the same way we came in. And so we decided to go try to get out through the customs, you know, the actual border where everybody goes through. And when we did, they started questioning us and pretty much said, wait here. And then some military showed up and took us to jail. And basically they accused us of being Israeli spies, because of the equipment we were carrying.
But also there was somebody who turned you in, wasn't it?
Yes, we found out later, we didn't know at that time, but a man had called and said that we were spies. Not so very good friend of my father's. And
he knew you were going in there?
yes, we had told him we were going. And anyway, he let them know ahead of time, so when we showed up at the border, of course, they just put us straight away in jail. And we stayed there for 75 days, being questioned and things. And also, when we first got there, they separated us and took us one by one in for questioning to see if our story would match up, and it didn't.
It didn't?
No, because we made up a story.
Why, how we got in there.
We told them that we hired a boat in Jordan, and that the boat people, the guy on the boat robbed us with a gun and then made us get off the boat. And so anyway, we
it's never
lied.
Wise to take a lie. That's never wise.
And anyway,
How old were you at that time?
How old?
Yeah.
I was 23 and Danny was 24.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were scared?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how they caught us was they asked my dad how many people were in the boat, and my dad said one person, and then they took Danny and questioned him, and Danny said there was 2 persons on the boat. And when I went there, I said there was 3 persons on the boat, because our story, we didn't get it all together good enough, you know. And so anyway, they knew we were lying. And after they figured out we were lying, we pretty much basically had to tell them the truth of why we came and everything. So then they thought we were spies. And when we first sort of got there, they sent us in a room, and they said walk towards that wall. And the wall had a bunch of bullet holes in it. So we were very, very scared.
It was blood also, wasn't it?
Blood and bullet holes. So we were very, very scared. We thought we were about to be shot. And they yelled at us in Hebrew, stop. And Dad said, keep walking. Don't do nothing, you know, just keep walking. And so we didn't turn around, and they didn't shoot us.
If we had stopped, they would have shot us, I believe, because they would have thought that if we had to understand Hebrew, then they would have thought that we were really spies. So Dad saved us there.
Yeah.
Even though he got us here in the first place, he saved us after he got us there.
Yeah. And anyway, the next 75 days was just a bunch of interrogations. Over and over again, they kept asking us the same questions to see, because when you lie, the story always changes. You can't ever remember the last lie you told. So, but our story kept matching for 75 days. And we finally, we asked them to let us see an American embassy, somebody from the American embassy. They said, no, there's no embassy. We're not going to let you talk to anybody. And we kept asking, well, when can we go home? You know? And they would always say,
Inshallah.
Something like Bukhara, Inshallah. Or, and that means, I guess, tomorrow if it's God's will. I believe. And,
yeah, that's right. And they said it a lot of times. They kept saying it.
We talked about trying to escape, and many times, and we prayed, you know, constantly for God to let us get out of there. And finally,
you made a decision to run away, didn't you?
Yeah, we wanted to run, but
I didn't want to.
You didn't want to.
My dad kept telling me, well, just wait, you know, 7 more days, 1 more week, and if they don't let us out, then we'll go. And then that week we'd get up and, okay, let's go.
There wasn't anywhere to go, but we were sitting there. But you know, it was a big area. The only way we could have gone would be at the Red Sea, and there was so much land between us and the sea, we never would have made it.
This was in the city Hakkol, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In Hagul, yes.
Hakkol, yeah.
And anyway, it was stupid of me to want to try to escape, because we probably would have been shot also trying to escape.
Yes.
Finally, they said, okay, you're going home now. And
We were really relieved.
Yeah.
Really?
very, very
We didn't know
relieved.
whether or not to believe them or not until they actually got us in the car. And yeah, took us back over to Jordan. And we said, all right, we're back
They
here.
took us to the Jordanian border, and at the Jordanian border we were met by the Jordanian military, and they drove us straight to another jail. And so we were like, oh no.
That was
you know?
very disappointing. Yeah.
And when we were coming into the jail, we heard a man screaming, and just you know, in pain. And they walked us around the corner to go into the jail, and there was a man having his beard and mustache ripped out by their hands. 2 guards were ripping his, and our beards were long.
We've been in jail.
My dad had to lift his mustache to eat because he would bite his mustache.
Yeah, mine was long too. Ronny was lucky; he didn't have much of one, but.
And anyway, we thought, oh boy, we're in trouble now. But mainly they just ask us, why did you go to Saudi from our border, you know, because we disappeared from their country and nobody knew where we were at. And plus we left the rental car on the side of the road.
They found the car.
They found the car, and so they didn't know what happened to us, you know, until they let us go at the border. And so they then informed us that we had to pay for the car for that 75 days for the rental car. Luckily in Saudi Arabia, they pay you so much money a day while you're in jail, and you buy your food out of the money they give you. And so we had saved up money actually while we were in there, and so we had enough to pay them, and we still had our plane tickets and stuff because they had took them from us, and passports and everything. And so they basically kept us for 3 days there, and then they let us go home, and they told us never to return to Jordan again.
And you haven't been back here
No.
since that time
No.
at all?
This
My
is my
dad-
first trip since I was in jail in Saudi Arabia. I thought
My
that
dad
was good
later-
enough for me.
Yeah,
No more traveling.
yeah, that's true. My dad later got to go, and they took him out to Mount Sinai
Yeah.
and let him see it. And they even got pictures and everything, but then they took the pictures from my father and wouldn't let him keep them. And they said that they were scared that Israel would come and take that part of the country because it was their history, their heritage, the Mountain of the Laws. And they don't want biblical archaeology over there, you know, really, because it's against their religion altogether.
But now they have a fence around.
They
They put up a fence with archaeology sign.
Yep. And there's an altar that had a cow, like
Yeah.
I forget which god that is, that they worship, the golden calf and all. And there's also the rock that was split,
Yeah.
and the top of the mountain is black from the presence of God descending on it. And so just by us going to jail, God made people interested in the site, and they thought, well, this must be it, you know. And now everyone is certain that Mount Sinai is in Saudi Arabia, and it is called Jabal El Laws.
Yeah. Well, that's quite a story. You went through there.
What's good is that God worked out. He had it planned,
Yes.
and he put the idea in my dad's head to go without permission to begin with, and gave us the courage to do it.
Yeah. I guess it
When-
was tough, but anyway, now we know.
You remember when we were praying that morning? We felt something.
Yeah,
All three of us.
we all
His dad
prayed,
said,
and
"Did
then
y'all
we
feel
decided
something?"
to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we woke up at 3 in the morning, Dad said, well, let's pray, you know, and Dad said, you know, I think we should go.
Uh-huh.
So we did. Now, this is my brother's first trip back, and
Yeah.
since
This has
then,
been a good trip.
and I guess it was, what, 24 years?
Yeah. 24 years. Yeah.
No, yeah.
And now the story has been spread all over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, yeah.
And other people have also been there and seen for themselves. not
Yes,
only-
yeah, since then a lot of people
Yeah.
have got to go. Some people snuck in after we did and got a lot of
Yeah.
pictures back out.
Yeah.
They must have been better at sneaking than we were.
Yeah, some are working also in Saudi Arabia.
Yes, that's
I could
true.
go up there and
Yeah.
confirm the story.
Yeah, Vivica.
Yeah, and this Caldwell people,
Yes.
they were there for 12 years, and
Yeah.
they sent picture to your father
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was
And
very happy
finally,
about that.
finally they did even scuba dive on that side and have found chariot wheels on that side also.
Yes, yes.
And there used to be a column that Solomon put there to mark the crossing site on the Saudi Arabian side and on the Israeli side. And so Solomon knew where Mount Sinai was years and years ago. Why we lost that knowledge, I don't know.
Well, we're standing here in the ancient city of Ashkelon. Last time me and my brother were here was 1979. It's changed quite a bit, but when we were here, we were with our father, and we hiked around all day around this area, looking at everything, the pillars, columns, and everything. Real interesting place to visit. And after walking all day and looking around, it was a hot day. And after we got finished looking around here, we went to, we took off down the beach, and you know, we were hot, so Dad decided we need to go for a swim, so we found a nice flat area to swim right past here, a little ways. And so we went out swimming to cool off, and my dad was out in the water waiting. And he actually bumped his toe into something. And me and Ronnie were swimming there beside of him. He asked us to see if we could go down and find out what was under the water that he stubbed his toe on. And me and Ronnie, we went underwater. It was salt water. Stung our eyes a little bit, but we saw these round, they look like giant pots, and they were round. And
Like ceramic
pots. And so we saw those and just told Dad what they were in that, and we didn't think that much of it. I mean, we thought somebody may have seen it before, but he ended up telling the was it
Israeli Antiquities Authority.
Israeli Antiquities Authority, and they had never heard of it or seen it or anything, and that's what got my father. That's what got him started over here. Getting permission to dig other places, because he had found those. They ended up being burial pots. Are they Philistine?
Philistine burial pots.
And that's I don't know.
Almost everything we found was by God letting us stumble on it. That's
Yeah,
about
which
it.
that was a good example, him stubbing his toe and finding it. But so that's how we got our foot in the door as far as being able to come over here and dig.
On the other side.
And yeah.
Okay, we're here at King Solomon's Mines, or Zedekiah's Cave. After digging in the Garden Tomb, we all talked about it and prayed about things, and there had to be a way where the Ark of the Covenant was taken out of the city and hidden where it's hidden today. And my dad believed that there are some tunnel systems from underneath the city of Jerusalem that actually would get you all the way over to the Skull Mountain, or what do you call it?
On the other side. Yeah, that's Skull Mountain.
And or the Hill of the Skull, where Christ was crucified. And so he had us explore around in here. We found a Tiberius coin again here inside of a small wall, and it was like hammered to the rock and stuck there, and it was all green and pretty much corroded, but my dad had it cleaned professionally, and it was a Tiberius coin but in terrible shape. And so that also dated that wall to Christ's time also. And so I'm not sure what year it was, because it's been so long, and we've been here a lot of times. And my dad went down, taking a tour down to see where the children of Israel crossed the Red Sea. And he left me here to dig, and he showed me a spot where to dig, and where a cherubim was taken off the wall. And Dad thought that a cave would be in there somewhere behind this little wall. Since that time, it's been dug out. If you go inside the cave today, it looks nothing like it did when we first came here, because of so many people who have been digging for the Ark of the Covenant itself, and or a tunnel system that would lead them to it. And all we did really is we found a bunch of pottery, some bones that were carved into tools, and there was a door in here that covered a tunnel. But I only saw this door one time, along with a couple other fellows that were with me at the time. And the door was shut, locked, and bolted to the wall on each side, so there was no way to get past it. And we called my dad back in there, and he was looking for us, and he came up to the door. We were kind of down, and we came up this out of a hole, sort of, and there was this big green metal solid steel door. And we got our flashlights, shined it through the bars, and all you could see is blackness where the tunnel just kept going on and on.
Behind the door, or?
Behind the door. Through the bars in the door.
The bars in the door, you can see.
Yes. And there was 3 people at least, besides my dad there, me and the 2 other guys. I believe it was Tom Andrews and Eric Limpkin. I'm almost positive. And anyway, my dad seemed very shocked that we found that door. He just said, "I'm very surprised that you found this." And we didn't really know what he meant, and he didn't really want to explain himself. There was another time where my dad flew over here, and evidently the people over here, the antiquities people, or somebody had sent 6 people into a tunnel system, and they believed that the men were supposedly Levites, and that they were trying to go in to where the Ark of the Covenant was. And what my dad told me is that when he got here, they said that they needed his help, and they told him that they had sent 6 men in to go into where the Ark of the Covenant was. And they asked my father if he would go in and take the bodies out of the cave because no one else would go in there. And what my dad said is that he went in there and they gave him a basket, a big basket, and he tied a rope to it, or they did, and he drug that in there, and he had to pick the bodies up and put them in this whatever cage or carrier or something, and they had to drag their bodies out by using the rope. And that's some of the people who have died looking for the Ark of the Covenant. And that's why my dad was very secretive about it, even to people he loved and knew and trusted, because he thought that if we weren't careful that we might end up, you know, being one of those who were lost by pushing forth when the time wasn't right on the Ark of the Covenant.
There were some people on the digging, I wrote it on I saw it on the internet, that said that they confirmed it. Israel to us in 2005, they confirmed the story.
Yeah.
Because, you know, many people say what to believe, and it's never been in the newspaper, nothing.
Yeah.
But they confirmed it.
There was a cover story in the newspaper here that said that the men had died. They drove a Jeep into like a landmine area, and that's how they were killed. But that was just to cover up the real truth behind it all. There's been a few different people who found that out to be true.
Yeah.
And also there have been the same people who've dug in the Garden Tomb dug here also and drilled and did radar scans, underground radar, for looking for tunnel systems. And they've dug a good ways in, and so far they haven't really found anything of a tunnel system yet. And I think, as far as I know, that's where it stands today, is nobody has found that tunnel. I was here in 2005 with the group, and we searched for the iron door that I was talking about. I don't know, at least 10 or 12 of us went in there and spread out, and we were trying to find it, and we never found the door again. We're not sure if it's covered up or if, you know, God just closed our eyes so that we can't see it right now. My father said many times that there was no more digging that had to be done, that it was accessible. It just depended on if God wanted you in there or not.
Yes. You said kind of, if God wants to.
God wants you to.
It's easy.
Yeah.
If you don't want, you can never get in there.
Yeah.
You try as hard as you want.
And our father really wasn't the kind of guy who make up stories. And I mean, it's unbelievable in a lot of ways, but it's got to be the truth because of everything else my father did and how we were raised, and he would never lie to anyone. And I know that he was speaking the truth about the Ark of the Covenant, and I hope someday that we all get to see it for ourselves when God knows it's the right time to show it to us. Well, we're right here at the Garden Tomb in Israel. This is where we started digging with my father, Ron Wyatt. When When we first came here, it was full of garbage and trash and broken glass, dead animals. And my dad kind of went to the people here and he said, hey, I would like to clean that out for you, is how we started it. And so we cleaned it out, and then we sort of kept going. And we started finding pottery, and we found some Roman glass. And my dad believed that the Ark of the Covenant was in this area. We found 4 cross holes here, 3 up above. Over here there's some cutouts in the rock where we think they may have placed signs that said, like, you know, where he was crucified, the King of the Jews, and the 2 thieves on either side. And then as we dug down, there was a big rock, a huge rock in the cave, and we climbed over it every day, and we started getting really sore knees and bruised up from it. And so one day I tried to move it, and it moved a little bit, and so I brushed it off. We always took turns. One guy would carry the buckets of rocks up and hand it to the guy on top, and so I was inside that time, and Dad was down further digging. And I brushed the dirt off, and there was a big plug in the rock, and you could tell it was stuck there. There was a crack all around it. We knew something was in it. And so I yelled at my dad to come up and take a look, and he did. And we pried up this rock, this plug out of the rock, and inside there was a Roman coin from Tiberius's time, which is the time of Christ, and which was very, very exciting to us. That when we did that, that was our last day on the dig that time, and we were going to fly home the very next day. And so we prayed about it, what we should do. Should we just leave it there and let somebody else come in and maybe take it or whatever, or not? And so we prayed, and shortly after that, very shortly, we decided that if we could move it, that we'd flip it over exactly in its place and just put some dirt back on it and leave it there. And it stayed there until last year, sometime around September. There were other people here digging to see if they could find the Ark of the Covenant or the chamber that it's in, and somehow they hoisted it up with bobcat with a strap, and they lifted it up, and they don't know what happened to it, at least the last I heard. The other 3 cross holes on the other side of this dig, we don't know if they're still there or if they're torn up now also. We hope they're still there, because it would mean a lot to Christians everywhere to not have those destroyed, because it seemed just like how it's described in the Bible, with a thief on each side, or a murderer and a thief, and Jesus in the middle. And
we're pretty much convinced this is the place where Christ was crucified, and that's why we started digging. And my father did the dig to. The only reason he did the dig is to prove that the Bible is accurate, so Christians can, have a good foundation belief in that the Bible's true, and that's why my father's digging. He wasn't doing anything for money. He was doing it to get the truth out.
The whole reason my dad got into archaeology at all was because he didn't like people how they would do away with the miracles, like the Red Sea crossing site and Noah's Ark and things. They say that the Red Sea crossing happened in the Sea of Reeds, which gets ankle deep sometimes, and that a flash flood killed all these people, the whole Egyptian army. And it was ridiculous to my father, and it made him angry that people would make up things like this with no evidence whatsoever. It's just guessing with seemingly no motive to think that. We dug many years here.
When you dig here, you dig the big hole, but when you found the cross hole, you have to crawl under, because the hole was not that big as we can see here today. So you have to crawl under the earth?
Yes, we went down, straight down here, where this little dip is in the rock, and there was a handle carved out of the rock where you could put your hand in or a rope and grab it. And so we went straight down, and we started coming over this way towards the chapel a little bit. And then we decided no, because it was all loose stuff, and it wasn't, it seemed like we found more like broken pottery and trash this way, but we went along over that way because of the 3 cross holes that we found.
So you were crawling under
the earth, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, we didn't have it tall enough to stand. We had to crawl, and it was very dirty, and the hole filled up with flies and mosquitoes, and it was very hard work.
But then you did something strange. You just broke into the mountain.
Yes, we went along under the ground right beside this mountain here, and we didn't know exactly which direction to go, and we saw some roots coming out of the actual side of the mountain, you know, which seemed very strange to us, because there would have to have been some chamber behind in there for a root to be coming out. And so we started prying on this crack, and then a big hunk of rock fell out of the wall, like somebody had almost stuck it there. And inside that, you found the Tiberius coin.
Yeah, inside there. Which that was the second one we found.
The second one.
Yeah.
But actually, you found that first, didn't you?
Oh,
Before,
that's right. Yeah, that's right. Because the 4th cross hole we found was down deep in the hole.
Yep. And so anyway, he found one Tiberius coin inside the mountain. The other Tiberius coin was, like I said, in the plug in the rock to date it, because that's how they dated things.
You didn't remove it?
We didn't, no.
We left it there. We did things carefully, you know, and made it neat and everything. And when we come back this year, we just looked down in the hole, and it's nothing like it used to be. Like my brother said, they got a bobcat in here, and kind of, well, they tore up the
They
rock
just
hole
dozed up
knowingly.
all the dirt.
So it's destroyed for what you have
We
saw.
think they pulled the one cross hole up, and it
We
got thrown.
know they pulled it up, and
You saw it. You were here the first year?
Yes.
It started here?
Yeah. Yeah, it was like September 2005,
Yeah.
I believe. I was here digging with 2 archaeological groups that had to join together to do the dig because of the Israeli Antiquities Department. They just got tired of both of them arguing about it and said, you get together and do it. And so we had 2 groups here, and we never even tried to dig for the 3 cross holes, which we had covered up with our fill dirt from our tunnel. We covered those up. Huh?
Why not?
Yeah,
You
because
don't have to answer.
we wanted to cover them up because of the significance of them, and to save them and preserve them. And we thought that if we left them out, that people would, whatever, maybe destroy them. People that weren't real good Christians might not want the proof that Christ was here. And the one in the center, the cross holes on the other side, had a crack all coming down from the whole side of the mountain where the earthquake happened when Christ died. It made a crack, and it went all the way down.
You saw the crack?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And my father scraped a sample of what looked like really black, dark in the crack.
Yeah.
And so Dad scraped it up and put it in a little black film container. And later on, people were thinking that the cross hole was down in the hole that had the crack in it. But that was pretty much their misconception about what Dad had said. And Dad didn't trust a lot of people with this because of its importance to everyone. And but anyway, we believe that that was a sample of Christ's blood, that when the soldiers stuck him in the side, that they hit his spleen, and that the water and the blood fell down through the crack and onto the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant, therefore fulfilling our salvation in his sacrifice. And
did you crawl around in the mountain, or was that just your dad afterwards?
We dug into the mountain and cleared out a bunch of loose rock, and then we hit solid smoked quartz. And it was very, very hard digging. And after we started the dig, I ended up getting married, and for 4 years, so I didn't come over, and my brother and a couple friends came over and helped dig. Brian did a little, didn't he?
Yeah, we did.
Brian Karras. And
we set up 3 crosses and put up some signs just to give people an idea what it would look like.
And at that time, we believed that it was probably a very visible spot from the wall of the city, the old city of Jerusalem. And last year, I guess September 2006 is when they came back with the Bobcat and dozed up, and taking a look in the hole there, they've made a mess of it, really, in my opinion. And it looks like they're going to be covering it up soon, because they built framework in there to, looks like, to seal it back up, but it doesn't look like they're going to fill it with rock or dirt or anything. It looks like they're just going to cover it. So hopefully some other time, maybe somebody can come back and try to find the 3 cross holes that we originally found before we started to dig.
Do you think there will be anything to find left there now? Do you recognize anything? Can you have a look down there?
Yes, I recognize the hole we broke out of the side of the rock, the side of the mountain. And you can see part of the tunnel, our original tunnel going in, where it came in. And well, here you can see what they've done on their dig. The original hole that we went into the side of the mountain is the top hole here, if you can see that. And then we went downward through a lot of smoke quartz inside that hole. Yes. Okay. And at first there's a lot of loose rock, but then we really had to start using jackhammers and chisels, and it was very, very hard work going down because of how hard the quartz is. And even the drill bits, some of the best drill bits that you can buy, couldn't penetrate the quartz, at least not at a very fast rate, and it always ruined the bits on the dig I was on in 2005. They've dug way out further than we ever were. We never dug this far out.
We stayed alongside the wall,
and we're not exactly sure why. Maybe they were trying to, they found a cistern down in here, an ancient cistern and some things, but as of yet they haven't found the chamber where the Ark of the Covenant rests. My dad said that when he saw the Ark of the Covenant, that the whole back of the room was glowing and sparkling, and what Dad said was that that was the smoke quartz, and the reflection of the gold off of it was, with a light, was just very beautiful. So they carved this out of solid quartz and to make a very beautiful resting place for the Ark of the Covenant. And
But he never told you exactly where it was.
he never told us exactly where it was because he was afraid, because some people, it is said that there's been a few people who have actually died looking for it, and Dad thought that it would be very dangerous, and he warned his wife at the time, and
He told us when he was real sick, before he couldn't make it back over here, and he told us that he was worried about people's safety is what it was. He didn't want somebody coming in there for the wrong reason and ending up, you know.
because something this important, God knows when he wants it to be shown to the world, and we don't. And Dad didn't want people to try to force it on God to show it now when the timing has to be perfect to save as many souls as possible, because that's what God is all about. And when the 10 Commandments do come out and are shown to the world, I think that a lot of people are going to be ready and to need to know the truth about the Bible and the 10 Commandments and how they were written on the tables of stone. My dad said that it actually looked like a finger in soft butter was how it was written, and so it's going to be very awesome when those are brought forth, to see the finger that wrote that, you know.
You know, you talk about the cutouts. Is this what we see? Some of them over there. You know,
Yes.
It looks like they have cut in the.
Yes,
the
there's
wall.
one here. It's
Yeah.
kind of flat there, and then there's one down lower,
Yeah.
right there, behind
Because I've
those
never
two
seen
beams.
that before, because it was under the ground before.
Yeah, parts of it, because our field dirt
Yeah.
raised up the level of
Yeah.
it. And I believe possibly they were looking for the 3 cross holes by digging so far over. I hope that those weren't destroyed as well or lost
But some of
in
it
their
is
effort.
gone. After your opinion, some
Yes.
of the crossholes are gone here.
At least I know one.
One here.
The one that had the plug and the Tiberius coin
It's gone.
is gone. And the last I heard, they didn't know where it is, if they've located it. The archaeological people who came here, if they did recover it again, they haven't mentioned it to us. I hope they do find it.
Could
And
you recognize the stone?
oh yeah,
And you can't see it.
and no, it's not here. And the pictures he showed me of his dig when they got back after September 2006, he come to my house. One of the fellows who was digging here wanted to show me the pictures of the dig and to ask my opinion on some things, some film that was taken of my dad years ago and what he was doing. And in one of the pictures, the cross hole was still there in the tunnel where we had left it, and in 2005 when I was here, it was still there. People were sitting on it when they took a break. The workers, every time when they got tired, they would just go sit on it.
You
And
saw that?
yes,
You didn't say anything?
I didn't say anything because I felt like that if God wanted them to find it, that he would show it to them. And why would I show them when he could have easily showed it to them if that was his will?
Yeah.
All I did is I prayed for God's will on that dig, and sincerely and honestly prayed for his will to happen, and if it was his will for them to find it, that they find it. But Obviously it wasn't his will at the time, and it's hard to know what God's reasons and purposes are for us, because we're just human. And he's our Savior and was here from the beginning, and
he knows the right time that it needs to come out. So.
But I don't think that the people digging here took very much care in what they were doing. It just looks like a mess down there to me. And hopefully someday in the future someone will be able to go and retrieve the 10 Commandments out of the chamber. And when they do, my dad left some things in there just to show what he said was true, that he was in there with it and that he saw the Ark of the Covenant. And so he left a piece of a pomegranate and some actual videotapes. So, I mean, I'm sure they're probably ruined by now from the moisture, but
somebody gets back in there.
At some point